This episode is brought to you by Modal Electronics, who enable you to play and perform powerful sound with their incredible synthesizers. You can enjoy vibrant wavetable patches with the Argon 8 series, or you can produce with state-of-the-art analog-style synth textures with the Cobalt 8 series. To check out Modal Electronics' incredible array of synthesizers, go to modalelectronics.com. Modal Electronics. Dare to sound different.
I mean, I started again just, maybe 10 years ago. But I mean, I've been buying it since the 70s.
Yeah.
But, when they started re-releasing everything, I decided I had to have everything, remastered and reissued and,
Yeah, it's nicer when it's like fresh.
Yeah.
I know people like shopping for vintage records and stuff, but I do like it with the kind of cling on top and everything. Well, I wanted to start off by saying welcome to the Greatest Music of All Time podcast. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
I discovered your music with the Pale Green Ghosts album, and that was by far the best album of that year. I think that was 2013. That was seriously incredible. And so I hope you don't mind me kind of introducing you a bit to my audience by asking you, can you pinpoint like the thing that got you into music in the first place, or do you recall like your earliest musical memory?
I don't really recall, what the first memory was, but I mean, for me, I was really into ABBA, So
they are incredible.
Yeah, and so that was, I mean, in the 70s, in the late 70s, I guess, hearing the Name of the Game and, Eagle and Take a Chance on Me and SOS. I just heard that Portishead cover of SOS. Did you hear that?
I haven't heard that. Oh my life!
They just put that on. On SoundCloud.
That's so cool.
It's pretty incredible.
If you don't mind, I'm actually just going to make a little note of that because that is cool.
It's really incredible. I mean, I love that they did it really dark too, so it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and probably must be quite different. Although there of course is a darkness and an undertone to the ABBA version, but in terms of ABBA, like at what point was it when you heard ABBA that you thought, I want to become John Grant, the incredible singer-songwriter? Did you already have aspirations to become a musician and pursue that professionally?
I mean, I never really allowed myself. I mean, I sort of secretly wanted that, inside, thinking that I could do that. I mean, I saw, Yellow Brick Road was a big, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was a big album in our house as well, for my brothers. And I think that's probably one of my favorite tracks of all time, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. So, I mean, I grew up playing the piano. So I started playing the piano pretty young.
How did you learn the piano?
I had private lessons, just like some, I had a couple of really great teachers. I think there was Mrs. Vanderbilt. I think it was Vanderbilt was her last name. And then there was this woman named Charlotte, and I can't remember what her last name was. But I really loved ragtime. I loved to play ragtime. So, and I loved disco. I really loved Donna Summer. I remember loving, Donna Summer's hits back then, like on the radio and I Feel Love, especially Love to Love You, Baby.
Yeah, her
So yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever really allowed myself to say it out loud, you know, that I wanted to do that.
why is that?
Or, you know, I don't know, because I didn't, you know, I think I didn't believe that anybody believed that I could do it, you know? And so, yeah, and I suppose the sexuality came into it quite a bit for me, you know? I didn't think that you know, I didn't think that I would be allowed to succeed or that there was a place for me in society. Um, I suppose it was connected to, you know, the religious upbringing that I had as well. You know, like, you know, the mixture of religion and sexuality and all that stuff that was going on in my head, I think sort of made me feel like yeah, like there wasn't a place for me, or I didn't know what to do or how to do it or how to go about it, you know, without losing my soul or,
And
you know.
in terms of religion, was this Protestantism? Like,
Yeah,
is that so? Yeah, well, I can see all of that, and I mean, I guess some of that that pain uh, is borne out in your work, and I mean, you probably get people saying this type of thing all the time. I don't know to what extent it's quite annoying, but when you know when you're sort of 1 minute, it feels like you're really expressing the pain that you're in sometimes in your music, and then you'll
yeah.
just snap out of it quite quickly by saying something that just makes you crack up. Uh,
Hmm.
and all of these influences that you've just mentioned, uh, everything, you know, disco, obviously the piano stuff, uh, the nice melodies and chords, like obviously Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is, you know, masterpiece when it comes to that type of
Yeah.
stuff. Um, so when did you start writing your own songs, and how did you allow yourself? Because I think even like some lyric writers probably don't allow themselves to kind of be funny. Some people, I think,
Yeah.
take everything super seriously, especially when writing songs as opposed to like rapping. Um, how did was it just a kind of natural thing to just be yourself and be witty and funny whilst also making them serious songs? It's not like, you know, you're Weird Al Yankovic or something. Like there are just moments of wit in there. Uh, is that something that evolved with your songwriting?
um, yeah, it really did. I mean, it was, you know, it was a long process. It was a really long process for me because you know, because I didn't feel like I had the right to talk about, you know, I mean, I really felt a lot of shame, and so I didn't feel like I could be myself, you know. But I've always had this, you know, this sense of humor, which was, you know, always a, you know, in some ways I see myself as a comedian. But you know, it was, you know, as it is for so many people, you know, it was always a defense mechanism to, you know, distract people from, you know, to get the subject matter not to go to, you know, why don't you have a girlfriend, or why are you so weird, or why aren't you like the rest of the guys, or why don't you play sports, or, you know, I think it was, I felt like maybe I had to be funny in order to survive, you know. But you know, I think that, you know, when it came to writing music, you know, I started to realize that that was a, you know, being witty and having that sense of humor was, you know, I mean, that was a huge part of my relationships, and you know, because I always made people laugh so much, you know, so people really liked that, of course. And but you know, I had it took me a really long time to start putting that in my music. Um,
Mm.
I don't know, maybe, you know, maybe maybe not as long as I think, but you know, it was, I think with the song Drug, you know, I was really starting to, you know, really starting to realize that that you could just do anything, that you could say anything. And, you know, I think that, you know, it was, you know, with that song that I really started to stop trying to be Radiohead, you know, because I felt like, you know, I felt like that's what I had to be at the time to be taken seriously or to be good, or, you know, you have to,
Why
because
did
I
you?
really, I mean, there was a time when I was listening to, I mean, I remember, you know, delivering bagels in the morning, early in the morning at like 5 in the morning, and listening to the Bends on, you know, CD in the car, in the company car or whatever. Um, and you know, it was, let's see, you know, I was always listening to Cocteau Twins as well. That was huge for me. Still is, of course.
Incredible.
Yeah, and so I mean, it just took me a really long time to figure out that I could just be myself, you know, and that would be, you know, how I would succeed, you know. Sorry
And
about that long drawn out answer, but
no, those
it's
are the best. Those are the best kind. The
yeah,
answers. I mean, that's the point of podcasts.
yeah,
In terms
yeah.
of singing, like for those people listening who have heard your music before, you know, they'll be well aware of this, but you have obviously this like incredible but like very rich, like deep voice.
Mm.
And like that's what makes, you know, the vocals so incredible. But
Mm.
was there ever a time where you weren't comfortable with your voice? Was there ever a time where you tried to sing in a different way? Because often people with singing like can strain, can sing in different, can sing in the wrong keys, or can, you know, choose things that are not right for their voice. Were you immediately comfortable writing the type of material that suits your voice, or and did you realize like the minute you started singing, you know, oh, I've got something really like unique here, or did it take you a while?
Um, it wasn't as much of a Karen Carpenter moment as I wish it had been, you know, because she, you know, you remember, you know, that story. She was singing, trying to sing in a much higher key.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she was, you know, she was trying to sing in this in the keys that she thought she was supposed to sing in as a woman, you know, and so, you know, it wasn't working with her voice, and then there was this moment when everything, you know, clicked, and she starts singing in that lower register, and everybody in the room was just like,
My life.
you know.
I hadn't actually, as moronic as it sounds, I hadn't
Mm.
actually ever kind of appreciated, even though now you say it, it's so obvious, that Karen Carpenter sings in a lower register. I just literally, you know, Karen Carpenter is like the top of the mountain when it comes to vocals. It's just,
Yeah,
it's like the best vocal tone ever.
yeah, it's incredible. um and she had a really low voice, I
Yeah.
mean, but you know, I think I still struggle with, you know, writing music that's I mean, I think I'm getting better and better at it, but I think on my third record, I was trying to challenge myself, and I really feel like I really tired my voice out with some of that higher stuff, you know. I love singing, I love, you know, singing in my falsetto, but you know, using your head voice in some of those higher ranges, I think, you know, I always want to just sing whatever I want to sing, and a lot of times I don't think about whether it's right for my voice or not. So it's interesting that you should. It's a great question, because I think that it took me a really long time to on this current album and the last album. I think I did a lot better job of, you know, writing things that really suited my voice. But it's a great, you know, it's really something that you have to think about. Um, So it's such a great thing to bring up.
It's very interesting when artists know and accept that. So like,
Yeah,
you know, you've got two of the great artists like Paul McCartney, Elton John, and I feel
yeah,
like Paul I mean, you know, you can't say a bad word about either of those two. They're
Yeah,
top of the hill songwriters. But like, I feel like Paul McCartney still tries to strain to reach those notes when he sings, whereas Elton John just like changes the melody up and accepts that he doesn't have the '70s voice.
yeah.
And I mean, in your case, you can obviously still hit whatever notes you want, but then it's just a question of choosing the stuff that really brings out that tone.
Yeah, that rich tone. Yeah,
But
totally.
did you always kind of appreciate that? And when was the first time that someone said, you know, you should do music, you should pursue this for the rest of your life, or was there never that moment? Was it always a struggle to, you know, allow yourself and to do it, allow yourself to chase this dream?
Well, I think you know, there was a moment in Germany where I sort of, you know, I was somehow made it into this little band, and somehow was able to allow myself to sing for a little bit. And the guys that I was playing with, I mean, I wasn't writing lyrics or anything. I was just, you know, singing whatever, you know, just sort of like syllables and stuff. Um, you know, which and I remember they were, you know, they were like, "Oh wow, you can really sing," you know. So, you know, you should. I remember them, you know, encouraging me, saying, you know, you should do this. And then I sang at a party, and I mean, I was drunk, and I don't even remember what we did. You know, it was they weren't even really songs, you know. And you know, I mean, I think I was really sort of tied to what my parents thought I should do, you know, and you know, if I was going to do music, then it had to be Christian music. You know what I mean? It couldn't be, you know, it couldn't be, you know, sinful, evil music.
So
And I mean,
you were from a seriously religious background then?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, you know, I was really, I really wanted to be an actor too. And that was, you know, that was the thing that I thought that I was going to do. But my parents, you know, my parents wouldn't support that, you know. And for some reason, I didn't feel like I could go out and survive on my own. You know, I didn't feel like I could. You know, I was afraid to be cut off from my family. You know,
Mm.
I mean, a lot of times when I'm talking to, you know, Cozy Fanny Tootie, you know, we'll be talking about Chris and Cozy, of course, because it's some of my favorite music of all time, which I still listen to all the time. You know, I'm so impressed by people who are just like, there's not even a lot of drama for them. They're just like, yeah, you know, you don't accept, you know, what I want to do. So I'm just going to go out and do it on my own. I'll figure out a way, you know, and I don't have to be connected to my parents. I don't have to, you know, give up what I want to do just because I don't get along with my parents, or because we don't connect, or because there's not a good relationship there. Um,
It must be a struggle for so many people, and something that so many people listening can relate to, because that is such a push and pull and such a struggle to accept that. I'm sure many people would agree with what you're saying about respecting those people who can just have the guts to just say, you know what, if you're not going to support me, then, you know, screw it. But there was something that interested me there as well, that about the sense of isolation that you can maybe feel, or the sense of, you know, the being alone. And the music industry is a strange one. To what extent, like, obviously you've had a string of acclaimed albums, successful albums, like you're pretty established, but at what point is an artist not alone in the music industry, in the sense that it's quite a fickle industry? Do you still feel like do you still feel like with
yeah.
every release that it's like, this one better do well, or are you past
Oh
the
yeah,
you
yeah,
were?
yeah. I do. I mean, I remember a time when I was told, after this you can, after this you can relax a little bit, and there's really no such thing, There really is absolutely no such thing. It's always, you're just as good as as the as the success of your latest record.
Why
So
is that? Why is that? Why is the music industry so fickle, and has it got worse in that sense, or has it always been like this?
yeah, why is that? Well, I think, if you have something that is somewhat successful, like my first solo album, was, for me personally, it was very successful. Um, Even though in the music business, it certainly wouldn't be seen as successful, um, because you have to be talking about a lot of money and a lot of millions of dollars, or a lot of, millions of streams and millions of records sold to be considered, successful. But I think, I think there's a lot of variables that go. I mean, there's the personal pressure that one puts on oneself, how one wants to be perceived. I think, for me, for every album, I just I do whatever I want to do, somehow. I don't know how I managed to do that, but that's just, I just feel like it'll be death for me if I try and do what I think everybody else thinks I should do.
Yeah. Well, that's
And I
probably
think,
the album is so good.
well, thank you. I But there's always people that are disappointed with every record, um, and say, "Oh, I wish it would have been like this." Pale Green Ghosts. I think I got those 5 stars in Mojo for the first record, and then 3 stars for Pale Green Ghosts. Because they were very disappointed in it.
Yeah,
And
I don't see that. That album is just a complete and utter masterpiece. I mean, especially I like they're probably tracks that you might get a bit sick of because everybody loves them, but like GMF, like is so good. It's like a real banger. It's a real. It's just one of those ones where you could play that if someone's like, oh, do you not know John Grant? And then you put that on, and they're like, this is awesome. And then Pale Green Ghosts as well, like to
oh
kick off
well.
the title track to kick off the album. I don't see that being 3 stars, but I guess, what do you do when you get a bad review? Do you care? Do you throw it straight in the bin, or does it really get to you?
Well, I mean, it can really get to you. I mean, sometimes it really gets to you, and sometimes you. I mean, I'm not reading anything these days, because it just, even in good reviews, all those things that people say, it just gets into your head, and it's not useful.
Yeah,
It doesn't help. And so, but yes, you have individuals writing things. So I mean, a magazine like Mojo, when you get this, they say your first one is a masterpiece, and then you come out with the next one and it gets 3 stars, and you've really sort of poured yourself into it, and you've done what you think is a great thing. I mean, you don't even know. Of course, when you get to the end of writing an album, you have no idea what you've done. You know what I mean? It's just, although I will say with this record, I felt really, there wasn't a lot of time at the end where I felt like I don't know what I've done. I felt really good about it. I felt really, really comfortable with it and pleased with it. But I mean, on those second and third records, I mean, I thought, the last record was really great, for me. And, there was some really great reviews and some really negative reviews too. And, it's about individuals, it's simply about individuals. And when people write reviews, they're not necessarily objective. They're just, individuals giving their individual opinions, so.
Mhm. And reviews of
Um,
performances as well. Like,
yeah,
that sounds like a stupid thing to say,
no,
and
it doesn't at all. It's
by and
very
large,
true.
by and large, like I do like Pitchfork, right?
Mm,
For example, like a lot of music fans would say, Pitchfork's a great resource for finding
yeah,
good, but like I think I saw on social media the other day that they were kind of like almost boasting about the fact that they gave like a Jet album like 0 out of 10, and like I don't know that much about Jet,
yeah,
but like I doubt it was 0 out of 10. Like they probably spent
yeah,
like over a year on that, and like
yeah,
some nerd writing for Pitchfork just thinks it's funny to like give someone's project 0 out of 10. I just think
yeah.
that really just smacks of like an arrogance that you couldn't possibly hold if you knew what it was like to make
Yeah.
music.
I mean, they don't even they won't give my stuff the time of day. That's one. That magazine. So, I mean, they don't even consider me to be somebody who's even worth acknowledging. So,
Well, that's mystifying, but I guess it's that kind of like velvet rope bullshit where it's like
yeah,
they only want to do a certain type of thing. I don't know. I couldn't possibly explain that. But this new album, it is getting a lot of great reviews, and rightly so, and is doing really well from what I've heard. It's called Boy
yeah,
from Michigan. I mean, I love all of your albums, and I think probably people listening already will, and people who could check out your work will, because all of the people who've come on this podcast, like, well, a lot of the great artists, your music is something fresh, but
mm.
also some of these people would probably have inspired you. Why did you decide to call the album Boy from Michigan? And when and where did you like record this?
Well, Kate LeBon produced this with me, and she and her engineer Sammer came to Iceland at the beginning of March last year, and we started doing it. We were trying to figure out what was going to, whether they were going to be able to stay here because of what was going on with COVID. So it was a weird moment of trying to figure out, are we going to be able to do this right now? But it just turned out to be, a very, a very right moment to be doing it, because our schedules were basically cleared. And so we had this time. They were able to stay longer than they had planned to, like a whole month longer. And so we had 2 full months, and then Kate came back in June. So I had, time in between to think about things and, sort of let things stew or marinate, let the sounds simmer or steep, if you will. And and then they both came back in August, and the songs just, they really we, at the very beginning, basically in the morning, we would figure out what I was going to work on that day, because I hadn't written the songs yet. I just had ideas.
So, to what extent were your ideas formed? Did you have like progressions or lyrics, or were you really going in quite, unprepared, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of like loops and progressions and ideas and bits of lyrics written down and stuff, and so there was a lot for us to go through. So it was sort of basically just we would decide in the morning what I was going to work on that day, and then I would write the song, and the songs just came very quickly and just sort of flowed out of me, and I stayed in the usually Kate and Sammer would go away for the rest of the day while I finished the song. And then we would, while I finished the lyrics and the basic structure of the song. And then sometimes there were things that, needed to be worked on, but it came very quickly, so it felt really, good.
And
And
when
I guess back to your question, sorry. Boy from Michigan, I guess that was just my I guess I just really was, I was thinking about Michigan a lot and thinking about, growing up in this small town and, romanticizing it a lot, but also thinking about how nasty the world had become and how, the people that raised me and the people that I was around, that it was quite terrifying for me to see, all of these people that I love and respected, choosing this dictator, this person who they believe deserved their greatest respect, and who I saw as, the ultimate evil, and as I saw as the sort of inevitable outcome or the inevitable product of our system. But it really made me think about, I really felt, I was really despairing, about, thinking that nothing was what I thought it was,
Mm. And is that something that's been heightened, that sense during the last, obviously, like year and a half, where things have got really weird and in some cases quite dystopian, regardless of whether the fact we're post Trump, it's just become like a bad movie almost, like
yeah
but really a depressing and worrying movie. Is that something
yeah
that has kind of got worse, that sense?
Yeah, it feels like it's getting worse and worse,
What, just the polarization between?
Yeah, it's definitely hurt my relationships in my family for sure, um and just, you see there isn't any sort of post Trump, it's, those people still think that they're gonna reinstall him as the president, by next month, you know
Well, how many people actually think that? That's got to be just the serious, I don't know.
Well, a huge number. He still has a lot of support. There's so many. I think the majority of Republicans believe that he's the real president still,
Mm.
like the acting president. And that boggles the mind.
Yeah, yeah, it really, really does. Uh, do you think, to a certain extent, that the polarization has warped their minds? And even, Trump was always pretty crazy, but do you think that it's in a way warped his mind? Do you think he's more crazy than he was when he started? Maybe he was always
No.
crazy. He was.
I think he's exactly the way he always was. And
Do you
if there's
know
one thing,
exactly what he's doing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's because the religion of the United States was never Christianity, it was capitalism, and so that's why somebody like him can become, the overall master and lord of these people, because the rules of capitalism replaced the rules of the Bible a long, 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 long time ago.
Yeah, I suppose that is absolutely true.
It
That is
is.
basically the system by which we all. But do you think that many people who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum in terms of like cultural and societal issues to Trump and his supporters are still kind of living their lives by that, religion of capitalism almost? And so therefore
Yeah.
that's probably causing quite a lot of problems, because I think to some of the more cynical people who are just either centrists or like there are some people who just like voted for Trump, I think, because they didn't see a better option, which is pretty laughable considering how bad things got during Trump. But these type of thing has happened. Do you think that's part of the problem?
Yeah, I do. I don't think you can say, these are the good people and these are the bad people.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what, you know, this record is about for me. It's about how, I mean, we're all caught up in that system to the same extent, you know. You know, all of us are, you know, playing this game, and we don't want to be inconvenienced, and we don't want to lose our stuff and our, you know, it's sort of the realization of the self, and, you know, the realization of your plan, your goals in your life, you know, to become a rock star or a rapper or a doctor or a lawyer, or, and to have those things that, you know, you feel like you've always, you know, the car and the house and the relationship and the, it just seems like that takes precedence over everything else. And there is no community, you know, there is no real sense of community. But there are, you know, there's incredible people out there fighting really hard for community. You know, I mean, when I see, well, you know, just like the, you know, for example, the nurses out there, you know, like nurses in hospitals, you know, people taking care of, you know, people working in soup kitchens and taking care of the homeless and stuff, you know, and really going out into the street and being with people and not thinking about the caste system. I mean, that's where the money's at, you know, so, figuratively speaking, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, that's something that I think about myself, you know, I think I don't really see myself as superior to these people that, you know, that we're talking about. But I feel this deep, you know, this deep sense of, how can someone think this is an option for us? You know, how can someone think this is, you know, the direction that we should be going? You know, it seems based solely on, you know, attack and kill and destroy, and keep attacking and killing and destroying until there's nobody left to counter you, or what's the word I'm looking for here? There's nobody left to
Or to even
contradict you, or
to challenge you or
yeah,
disagree.
to challenge you or disagree with you. You know, I mean, that's sort of the thing. You know, it's like always be attacking, always be closing. You know.
Yeah. There's that sort of like a salesman aspect,
Yeah.
sleazy salesman aspect to it all.
But I mean, our entire society is about, you know, advertising.
Yeah.
And advertising is about, you know, our whole system is built on, you know, manipulating. You know, it's about manipulation. It's about getting people to come around to your way of seeing things.
Yeah,
which is that they should be giving you their money, you know.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's not done in and I think part of that as well is perhaps some people's cynicism about you know, I guess to a certain extent, not that hardcore people who think Trump is going to be president in August or whatever, you know, sort of like conspiracy people, but like you know, the people who couldn't get behind Biden, or couldn't get behind, you know, who they see as the other side. I think there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of kind of capitalism, there's a lot of selling things that's like also kind of masked with a layer of, oh, I'm also like helping people at the moment.
Yeah.
But is it possible to do both? I mean, it should be, and you know, how do you personally juggle the, the need to sell, and the need to do promo, the need to advertise yourself with creating things?
Well, I mean, a lot of times I do struggle with it. I mean, because I genuinely enjoy interacting with other people, you know? And so I see, a lot of times I look at it from that standpoint, because the promo that I do is basically having conversations with people, you know? I mean, I don't really, I don't have the type of career where I have to sell myself as something that I'm not.
Yeah. Is that what
You know?
draws you to being an artist in a way? Because your job is to essentially be yourself.
Yes, but I mean, I do think that becomes quite a challenge because, I mean, I have a lot of, I have, I'm lucky in that the people that I do business with, they want me to be me, and they want me to be, they don't want me to be something different. So I'm really quite lucky. But I mean, it also means that I mean, there's certain things you have to do if you want to have a lot of money, if you
Yeah.
really want to have a lot of money.
What
Um,
what do you mean in the context of the music industry? Like,
yeah. Well, I don't know, because I don't really know. I guess I mean, there's people out there who it seems like everything they touch turns into a lot of money, right? um, yeah, I don't really know. All I know is I mean, there's, of course, it's a very, it's probably a really complicated issue, but yeah, in the context of the music business, I think if you want to have a lot of money, you have to make a certain type of music, and you have to, but there's always exceptions to that rule as well. We were talking about Portishead earlier, and there's, it feels like there's a lot of great artists like, Björk and PJ Harvey and Portishead and Kate Bush and um, who have really, made huge careers and fortunes out of, never compromising. But I'm sure it's not easy for them either. I don't know. Portishead doesn't seem to have a problem with it. They just do things whenever they there's long periods of time between the albums, very long periods of time.
they do things
But
on
I
their
mean,
own terms.
what's that?
They do things on their own terms,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's
And I
probably
mean,
quite rare for
yeah,
commercially successful artists.
I think it is quite rare, I think about Dead Can Dance, they quite, I mean, it took them a long time, but they certainly were able to get this huge following on a global scale, to where they can tour the entire world and always have everything sell out, and I don't know how many albums have they done now. It's 8, maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. But they've always done everything on their own terms as well. So, but like you said, I think it is more the exception. I know that I could probably be more comfortable financially if I would, people are always saying you need to write a hit, or your songs are too long, your songs are way too long. You can't write a hit, or um, I don't know. For me, a rhetorical figure is a hit.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it could be, but it's the also it's only about 4 minutes long, that one. But all
Yeah.
the songs are great, and it's a shame that it's not like FM radio era where you got like 10-minute songs being played. But I mean, what is a hit these days? I mean, it is pretty, uh, not to knock it, but most hits are like, they're either hip hop, which is not your genre, or
Yeah.
it's super poppy.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine you being into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly do like a good pop song. For example, you know, I loved Umbrella by Rihanna, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's the
Fucking,
thing.
I fucking love that song, and you know, it's smart. You know, the lyrics are great. I mean, it's a good song. And the chord progressions in it, there's some really, it's really dark, the chord progression in that. You know, it's really like Howard Shore, you know, style horror darkness, you know, thriller darkness in that song. It's sort of James Bondy, actually,
Yeah.
what's going on there. So, I mean, I can appreciate good pop, and I think, you know, there's a lot of people out there doing,
Ah, yeah.
you know, really great stuff.
Yeah, Roisin. That album, what was the song called that I couldn't stop listening to? It was Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Literally just could not stop listening to that.
I mean, that performance on Jules or Graham Norton, it was either
Graham
Graham
Norton.
Norton.
It's Graham
Yeah.
Norton.
Yeah.
I
I
love
mean, bonkers,
really
right?
cool. Yeah. I just couldn't stop listening to that record. I think that was one of the best songs to be released last year.
Absolutely. I also loved Narcissus. Narcissus is another, I mean, there's so many good ones on this record, but um, I think she's one of the ones that's really doing it right out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's been doing it right for a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, since the first Moloko record, you know?
Yeah. It's been a long career full of successes.
Yeah, but it hasn't been easy for her. I mean, I remember her talking about when Overpowered came out.
When
I
was
mean
that?
that, what's that?
When was Overpowered out? Was that like 12 years ago or something?
Yes, at least. Yeah, very, very good. I have that here. Let's take a look at that real quick.
Yeah.
One of the greatest album covers of all time.
Yeah.
This came out in 2007. That's a long ass time ago.
Yeah, yeah,
15 years ago, almost
yeah.
14 years.
So it's very impressive to still be making albums that are doing so well in this world, this genre.
Well, I mean, especially considering that, you know, she's taken time to have, you know, to give birth. And, you know, when Overpowered came out, I mean, that was a huge record, but it didn't do anything near what it should have done. I mean, she should have been a global superstar. You know, she should be on the level of Rihanna and Beyonce.
Yeah, I would agree, talent wise, for sure.
Absolutely.
And
But
and that record was the last year's record. Roisin Machine was as good like pop record as anything that was, in the singles charts.
as anything. And so, so I guess my point is, I guess I don't really have the answer because there's so many variables that are involved. You know, there's, you know, who the person is individually, what they personally want, you know, for themselves. You know, timing is a huge, huge thing that, you know, you hear people talking about. You can't really stress that enough, you know, when it comes to timing and hitting the nail on the head at exactly the right nanosecond,
Yeah,
you know.
right place, right time is super important with pop music.
So there's a lot of there's a lot of chance involved. I mean, do you remember a pop group from the States called the Pierces?
I don't remember them. No, I
Two
don't think
sisters?
they're called the Pierces.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just can you play can you play something for yourself right now?
I can. I probably would have to cut it out due to licensing, but they're called the Pierces.
Yeah. Look up Monsters.
That is a great record.
Yeah.
What? I'd never heard of them. What
Yeah.
happened?
I don't know.
By the looks of thing, actually, they released a Christmas record, 2020,
Yeah.
live performance. But yeah, they haven't made a studio album since that.
Yeah. And it really just fizzled out, you know, it didn't happen.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, it's there
And
must
I
be
mean,
so many examples of that.
yeah, I mean, because they had, perhaps the music industry already had their first aid kit, you know, and sort of here you have two sisters doing these beautiful harmonies. They have beautiful voices, and the songs are great. I mean, that's a beautiful song, and they have a lot of great songs like that,
There's
and
a
I
slight
kept
similarity.
thinking, what's
Not
up?
there's a slight similarity in not similarity, but like some of your songwriting, sort of like not a million miles away, just from some of the, like, I don't know, chords or
Yeah.
sensibilities with
It's
melody.
the type of thing that I like, it's the type of thing that one of the types of the things that I really love. But it's just a good example of something that, and they're gorgeous. I mean, they're, beautiful girls, um, lousy with talent, writing great songs. So it doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
because there's so many different variables involved. So,
yeah, it
but
doesn't
I
make.
guess I'm sort of getting off the subject here. I mean, we hear people talking about this all the time, right? What it takes to succeed.
Yeah, well, in my mind, what the definition of success that I think most people in the music industry aspire towards is what you've managed to achieve, in the sense that you have got a body of work that's been consistent throughout. And Boy from Michigan is an album that I would hugely recommend to people. Obviously, the people who are already listening, who've listened to your previous albums, will already be all over it. But people who don't know your work are going to absolutely love it. Do you sometimes struggle to get up in the morning or wind down for bed at night? I used to find it so difficult. I woke up with no sense of positivity and brightness. I was void of motivation and spirit. This changed completely when I started waking up with a Lumi body clock. These incredible devices mimic the light and colour of a real sunrise and sunset, transforming the experience of waking up and going to sleep completely. Rather than being suddenly woken up with an alarm clock, the Lumi body clock will wake you up gradually with a natural sunrise. The Lumi body clock has been shown to improve the quality of sleep and awakening, and to boost mood and productivity in clinical trials. You can personalise your sunrise and sunset from 15 to 90 minutes with their clinically tested unique natural light and more than 20 sleep and wake sounds. We all deserve to sleep well and to wake up feeling fresh. So if you're finding this a challenge and you want to try a new approach, go to lumi.com